I guess so. It's the holding on to things that oftentimes holds us back. Because you can't go forward if you're always looking backwards. And if you don't believe that, I'll give you a homework assignment, and we can prove it. Today when you go home, go wherever you live, I want you to start, and I want you to look over your shoulder behind you, and I want you to run as fast as you can through your house. Yeah. Don't run into anything, okay? How fast can you run forward when you're always looking backwards? Aren't you always going to be running into walls and tables and stuff? Life is like that too. You can't really go forward super fast if you're always looking backwards. This is a motif that you find in literature. A person sitting in front of a window, staring out the window. Why? Because whatever's out there is better than whatever's happening inside of here. You know, why do we get in cars? Because it takes us away from home. It takes us someplace else. Why do we look out windows? Because they take us someplace else, someplace that we're not right now. And why do we look to the past? Because we want a distraction from where we presently are. You're going to find that the less satisfied you are with your real life, the more time you're going to put into entertainment, because you'd rather be distracted from your actual life than to live it. The more you're living your life, the less time you have for external entertainment. So if you want to know why someone's doing something, what's the best way to find out? Ask them. And then ask them without judgment. So they were asking like, why are you even doing this? How do you answer that, you know? So he was on the side and he was kind of upset. And I was over there and I asked him, so why do you do all this? Why did you save all this stuff? And he's like, and he stares off and he just goes, because you never know. And I said, yeah, well, I don't know, could fill a library. What is it that we might not know about? And he goes on to explain to me a story, never even looks at me the whole time. He just stares off in the distance. He grew up during the Great Depression. And during the Great Depression, his family was completely broke. He remembers his little brother, his younger brother dying, and the family couldn't afford to bury him, so he had to help bury his little brother. And he remembers going to bed hungry constantly and having nothing. So there are a lot of people from that generation who became hoarders. Because what can you use? Everything. You gotta find a way to use it because you don't know what's gonna come your way. Newspaper, what can you use it for? In a pinch, you can use it for a lot of different things. You can use it for heat. You can use it for insulation. So he was hoarding everything he could possibly get his hands on because that stayed with him since he was a very little kid. So now you understand why he was hoarding stuff. That doesn't mean it was the right thing to do, doesn't mean it was a good thing to do, but now you understand it. And so now asking that question, why can't you just, no longer makes sense. You realize what a silly question that is to ask a person who went through all of that difficulty as a kid, and it stays with him. Now we can blame him and say, dude, there's no Great Depression coming, there's not another depression coming. But this is a guy who has lived long enough to experience that Great Depression and then to see like the housing crisis, the mortgage crisis. He has seen enough recessions in his life where every recession starts to look like, uh-oh, we're going back into that. It might happen again. And then when we don't, it's kind of like, well, not this time. But it's scarred him enough such that that's why he does it. People don't just wake up one day and then start hoarding and say, oh, no reason for it. I just do. There's always a reason for it. There's always a logic for it. We just have to take the time to find out. And asking a question like, oh my God, why do you do this? Why can't you just get rid of stuff? That's not going to get to the right answer because you're not really asking them because you want to know. You're asking them out of frustration because you want them to do something specific. You don't care about them. You care about, I'm not saying you care about them at all, but you don't really care about the reason. You just want that problem solved. Sometimes the way that you solve the problem is by getting to the root of it. What is the thing that's causing him to hoard? What is the thing that's causing us to be afraid? And so sometimes it's intentional. We stay in the dark about things intentionally. And I'm always fascinated by that question. Why do we not want to know about things? There's a lot of things in life that we just simply don't want to know about. And it always fascinates me. Why don't we want to know? What is it? Like we all seem to realize, so we all seem to agree that knowing things and being smart is a good thing. We don't oftentimes praise people for being ignorant. We put them down for being ignorant. We praise people for being wise and for knowing things. So, more about that in just a minute. Others. Yeah, it can be really depressing to see somebody else go through it. It's bad enough when we go through things. I wonder if any of you are like that too, where it's worse to see someone that you love go through it. Can you imagine that? Seeing somebody in your life who holds on to old things, refuses to get rid of them. Their life is made worse by it. You can't imagine living like that. Sorry, I'm describing some people's relationships, aren't I? It's all the same. I mean, it's the same kind of a behavior. We hold on to old things. It's one of my suggestions for a sensible life. The things that you aren't going to use in life, put them on the curb. That includes a coffee table. That includes a person. It's always of use to somebody else. But it's that holding on to things that holds us back. Yeah, I guess so. It's the holding on to things that oftentimes holds us back. Because you can't go forward if you're always looking backwards. And if you don't believe that, I'll give you a homework assignment. We can prove it. Today when you go home, go wherever you live, I want you to start, and I want you to look over your shoulder behind you, and I want you to run as fast as you can through your house. Yeah. Don't run into anything, okay? How fast can you run forward when you're always looking backwards? And aren't you always going to be running into walls and tables and stuff? Life is like that too. You can't really go forward super fast if you're always looking backwards. Sometimes you can look backwards. You can look over your shoulder. It's good to do when you're driving, perhaps. Like make sure there's nobody over in that blind spot before you change lanes. But you can't drive, wherever you're going the whole time like this, looking over your shoulder. You can't live and anything. You can't be you can't have friends around you if you're always having to look over your shoulder at them. You can't be in a relationship if you're always looking to the past. You can't be going anywhere in life if you're always looking past. Maybe it's nice to stop and look back once in a while to remember. Maybe there's a distinction between hoarding and having a photo album, maybe, or hanging on to a few little, if any of you guys have have a boyfriend or girlfriend, you have like a little box of this is the first time we went to the movies. You have the ticket stubs, or whatever letters you've written, if you guys still write those things, in a box. This was, I don't know, remember this? No, what was that? Oh, that was the napkin that you wiped your mouth with the first time we went to go eat pizza. It's like, ew, but sweet. And those are nice things to reminisce about, but when you're constantly living, now imagine if you're married and you have that box still. Your box from your first relationship, and every year you take it out in front of your spouse. And I'm not saying you're not for that person. That's a completely different person. The person you married in your first boyfriend, girlfriend. What are you doing? I'm remembering my first. Really? Yeah. You can't go putting photos of that person up on the coffee room table, because it's in the past. And the past is nice. It is. And it's good to know about it. In fact, it's really helpful to know about it because you find out why you are where you are, the things that led you to that. But again, it's interesting to me how often we try really hard to stay in the dark about things. And I wonder what it is that we gain from that. What do we gain from always looking to the past, except to not like our future? We have these big windows in here. And if I had those windows open, many of us would be staring out those windows. That's not why I have them closed. I have them closed just because the sun comes in. But if those things were open all the way and there's no sun, blaring on us, so many of us would be looking outside. Why? What's outside? I don't know. But something better than what's in here. This is a motif that you find in literature. A person sitting in front of a window, staring out the window. Why? Because whatever's out there is better than whatever's happening inside of here. Why do we get in cars? Because it takes us away from home. It takes us someplace else. Why do we look out windows? Because they take us someplace else, someplace that we're not right now. And why do we look to the past? Because we want a distraction from where we presently are. And it goes back to what I've talked about with regards to entertainment. You love entertainment, and you're going to find that the less satisfied you are with your real life, the more time you're going to put into entertainment, because you'd rather be distracted from your actual life than to live it. The more you're living your life, the less time you have for external entertainment. Entertainment becomes something that you do a little while to relax before bed. It doesn't become your whole life. It doesn't become the thing when you're doing it and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, it's 3 o'clock, 3 a.m. And it's not the thing that keeps you up, it's the thing that helps you fall asleep. But the more time you spend living on that. And so if we're constantly reliving the past and living in the past, and I mean, not looking back once in a while, not reminiscing, but living there, then you're not living in the present. And if you're not living in the present, you're not setting yourself up for a good future. And what I'm saying, I don't think obviously it's not earth-shattering. It isn't surprising to anybody if we just think about it for a couple of minutes. But it is a thing that sometimes you're going to ignore. Or maybe it's just not at the front of our minds. It's that enlightenment, man. It's that knowing. It's that experience. It's that living. It's that realization. It's that realization. In other words, realizing yourself, realizing your life, realizing your dreams. So we can forgive a child who's afraid of the dark. Why? They don't know any better. They don't know any better. Yet. Yet. But the tragedy is when adults are afraid of the light, we're afraid of finding out, we're afraid of knowing. And it's an interesting way of stating it, by the way. It's a tragedy. He's not trash talking at people. He's not like, you're just afraid of knowing. No. It's a tragedy. It's a terrible thing because it stops you from becoming what you could become, that knowing. And so, I'll leave it at that. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Neat. It's Thursday. Happy Thursday.